We're going to get started soon.
Uh-oh.
It's not 7 yet, but soon.
This is, now it's on.
I'm trying to watch the clock this time. I did it last time. I was the one talking. You're the boss. Oh, really? Here? Oh, well, not, but last. No, I'm just watching my. Don't call me Scott Lucky. Come on. All right, here we go. I'd like to call to order the September 21st meeting of the Conestoga Valley School Board. Welcome everyone in attendance, all those watching online, and if there's any in other rooms, we welcome everyone here tonight. Would like to mention that all are in attendance with the exception of Mr. Talley, and we have our newly, soon to be sworn in new board member, Lisa Whitaker, here with us as well. So if you could all join me with to the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Board, I will take a motion to approve our agenda tonight.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. All right, well, yes, now we want to officially welcome Lisa Whitaker back to the board. She was with us before for a little bit of time. So, Lisa, if you could please stand, and I will help you administer the oath, or we will administer the oath. If you could just repeat after me. I, Lisa Whitaker, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States
That I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
All right. Thank you, and welcome, officially.
Thank you.
Should we clap? All right. All right. Board accommodations for September. 3 Fritz Elementary families held a lemonade stand over the summer that resulted in over $1,000 being raised. The Brain, Eby, and Kime families used the money they raised to purchase and deliver 10 picnic tables to the Fritz courtyard. Thank you for your generous support. Congratulations to Cbe High School sophomore Carson Hoover, who shot an 85 at his team's September 10th golf match, and in the process qualified for the Lancaster-Lebanon League Championship. Thanks to the Hershey Company, the school district received a donation of 6 cases of face masks, a total of 5,000, from the Hershey Company earlier this month to distribute as the school sees fit. Many thanks to Esther Slode, the middle school Spanish teacher, Julie Iddings, HR director, and Kathy Newkirk from LGH for all the time and effort put into the 2020 Wellness Fair. They worked exceptionally hard to put together a robust program that was able to be offered virtually instead of in person. The fair was a success, and as a direct result of their leadership. Kudos to the custodial and maintenance staffs who worked hard all summer long to get many work orders completed and buildings ready to welcome students for the 2021 school year. They did yet another amazing job this year. A big thanks to Nick Hauer, our Cbe High School technology teacher, for taking the time out of his school year preparations to design and print all the social distancing floor decals located in all 6 of our school buildings. Thank you, Nick, for donating your time. Much appreciation and respect for Nancy Lopez, our CV nurse, for her leadership during the pandemic, her tireless efforts with regard to contact tracing, her persistent communication with the Department of Health, her collaboration with Penn Medicine, LGH and her clear information to the administrative team has created a safer environment for all CV students, faculty, and staff. Accommodations for tonight. Dr. Z, any comments from you?
Yes, Mr. President. You'll notice one change on the agenda found in the superintendent's report, highlighted in red. Josh was able to finalize the hiring process in his search for a tech support specialist. He was happy to announce Joel Pettit as the successful candidate. I also want to let you know that the probable case involving the middle school tested negative, so those close contacts who were quarantined have been notified that they can return to school tomorrow and do not have to finish out the 14-day quarantine. We did pick up one additional positive case at the high school, but that case did not have any interaction with CV individuals. So our total for the year is 6 positive cases at the high school and 1 positive case at Brownstown. Again, a big thank you to the nursing staff and the administrative team as they effectively and professionally addressed the cases and subsequent contact tracing. As noted by Mr. Schertzer during board accommodations, kudos to Nancy Lopez for her leadership on the pandemic team. Thank you, Mr. President. That's all for tonight.
All right. Any correspondence from the secretary tonight? All right. Board comments. Any comments from the board tonight? All right. This is going to be our first time in our meeting for public comments. You can, if you're here, you can come to the mic and we will hear your comments. Remember just to give your name and who you are and where you live, and you're more than welcome to share. You can go to that mic right there. It'll be fine.
Good evening. My name is Dale Salmons, president of the Conestoga Valley Band Boosters. I am here to inform you and ask Dr. Z for his assistance in resolving an urgent matter between the band and the administration. As background, our marching band began working on its fall performance shows in midsummer. Like many groups, COVID-19 restrictions have hindered their journey, with hope for opportunities always in doubt. Early on, it became clear that many of our opportunities from normal past years, like band and color guard competitions, would be lost. The delayed opening of school brought the realization that the parallel opportunity of concert band would be greatly diminished if it came back at all. It did, however, finally appear that Lancaster League football would start, giving us an important venue to perform. A hope that the hours of practice could be turned into memorable performances. Athletic Director Dina Henry published a letter on September 10th to the community, laying out that the 250 headcount allocation would almost all be taken up by direct participants, making it clear that only a very limited number of seats would be left over for family spectators at home games. In her letter, Director Henry listed the home cheerleaders and band members as direct participants. The band students and booster members were informed just a few days later, and just a few days ago on September 17th, that the administration had decided to eliminate the band members from participating in our home CV football events. This decision has been very shocking and very devastating to our students. We believe that the administration's decision has been largely, if not entirely, made to increase the number of seats allocated to parent spectators. We believe that the decision is wrong, very wrong on principle. The principle we rally around is students first and equal. Our ask that our students be allowed to fully participate is simply asking for equal treatment. Our ask for equal treatment is in perfect alignment with the district mission to educate all students to strive for personal excellence. Our ask for equal treatment is in perfect alignment with the district vision to inspire a collaborative learning community where all individuals have equal opportunities to achieve their fullest potential. For our students, the opportunity to perform in home football games is an indispensable and at this point, irreplaceable opportunity to achieve their fullest potential. I forwarded to the board today a letter written by our drum major, Kayla Wolf, moving from my words speaking for the students to her words speaking for herself. Every single Friday night during football season, we, the marching band, have been there supporting the football team, playing the music for the cheerleaders dance, and boosting the spirit of the student section. I desperately want to play again at the football games. I don't want to miss out on any more memories this year. My junior prom was canceled. My homecoming has been canceled. I can't have birthday parties. I can't visit colleges. I can't sing in the choir. I can't have a full concert band. The one thing I could have had was the opportunity to be under the Friday night lights once again. COVID-19 hasn't taken that from me. Right now, you have made the conscious decision to exclude me and 40-some other students from having at least one memory that resembles something normal. Kayla's asked to be allowed to perform is asking for what other drum majors are receiving throughout the LL League. To our knowledge, all other schools working under the same 250 head count limit included their bands in the Friday night games last week. The district mission and vision are right in the call for equal opportunities for all. The only way forward is students first and equal. We asked Dr. Z to make inquiries as needed and give direction to ensure that the administration's decisions are reviewed and updated to align with and fulfill the CV mission. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to address with you this issue tonight.
Thank you for sharing.
We'll continue to explore.
Yeah, I know that the administration is continuing to try to explore options and things where we can see what they can do. So I know Mr. Thornton's working on that as well. Mike, is there anyone else? No, no one. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Sorry. Comments from CVEA.
Good evening. My name is Tara Flick, and as you have heard me say, I just started my 24th year as a biology teacher, and I am also the president of the Conestoga Valley Education Association. I want to start by thanking all of our CV students who have been so responsible by wearing cloth masks. We know that masks are uncomfortable, but we also know that they help to keep us in school and save lives. We appreciate your willingness to be a part of a community that is trying to take care of one another. I'm speaking tonight about two major issues. The first is one you have heard me mention a time or two. The second one is one that only arose right before school started and is becoming a difficult obstacle to do well for teachers. First, I again stand before you to ask you to consider a hybrid model. A hybrid model will not prevent students or teachers from unknowingly coming to school when they have COVID. However, a hybrid model would immediately reduce the number of students and teachers who would need to quarantine as a result of a positive case. Not only would half of the number of students be in the building, but we could also get much closer to the 6-foot social distancing in our classrooms. This would mean that even fewer students would be quarantined in the quarantine range, within 6 feet for 15 minutes. As you know, we had to quarantine over 60 students, that's about 5% of the student population, and one teacher at the high school because of what was, at one point, 5 positive cases. If we had followed the hybrid model, that number would be less than 30. And again, that is only because half of the students would be in the building and we would be better able to socially distance. I do want to take time to thank Nancy Lopez and Mike Thornton, who worked extremely quickly to perform contact tracing so that we could keep the virus from spreading in school. I know you have been hesitant to consider the hybrid model, but I remain hopeful that you will decide to follow PDE guidelines and choose hybrid for CV, since unfortunately Lancaster County is still considered at moderate risk for transmission of SARS-CoV-2. Please consider a hybrid model as a way to prolong our ability to teach students in person. Please consider a hybrid model as a way to reduce severe illnesses and possibly death among students, faculty, staff, and the CV community. And also, please consider the hybrid model a way to return to face-to-face education after we inevitably have to go fully virtual. The second issue I'd like to discuss tonight is the use of real-time virtual model in our schools. At your school board meeting, August 24th, you wisely decided that real-time virtual should not be an option at the elementary levels. I am asking that you consider making the same decision for all levels. Teaching students who are in person at the same time that we are teaching students at home is a colossal mess that hinders learning. We are completely prepared to teach students face-to-face. We are fully prepared to teach students virtually when needed, but we are completely unprepared to do both simultaneously. This is one of those ideas that was floated last minute and may have sounded good in theory, but is severely lacking in practice. Let me explain why we think RTV should not be an option at any level. The best modes of instruction for these two groups of students are different. Teachers find themselves having to effectively plan two different lessons for the two groups. So in this stressful time when our instructional day has already been shortened, we have to plan almost double the amount we normally would. The classroom management piece is an organizational nightmare. It is incredibly challenging for teachers to determine when, during a lesson or a day, that RTV students should join the in-person group so that it makes sense instructionally and does not interfere or distract with in-person learning. I have been teaching for many years, and teaching RTV students while teaching face-to-face students is the most challenging thing I have done in my career. And it is killing me that I know I am not doing it well. I know my RTV students are not getting the best of me or the course I'm teaching. I am also concerned that my in-person students are not receiving the quality of education they deserve either. My time with them is distracted by troubleshooting computer issues with RTV students, and I struggle to reconcile engaging my face-to-face students with engaging hands-on activities when there is no effective alternative for my RTV students. Ironically, because I do not like to teach virtually, I found myself enjoying this past week when the high school was fully virtual because I could devote all of my time to teaching in one mode. I did not feel like some of my students were getting the short end of the stick like I do every day with RTV students. As Dr. Mann has stated, we really should not want kids watching school, and honestly, I think RTV is worse. It's more like listening to school. As high school teachers have been struggling with this, it was recently decided that elementary and middle school teachers would need to use RTV for quarantine students. If this RTV model is difficult at the high school, I think we can all agree that it is even harder to do at the elementary level. Their day is more dynamic and delivered in more varied ways than at the high school. Their use of technology is different, which makes it even harder to deliver face-to-face instruction and RTV simultaneously. And I am concerned that those parents who chose CVVA for their elementary-age child will now wonder why RTV is offered to quarantine students, but is not offered to them. We just do not have the technology, the training, or quite honestly, the time to plan and implement RTV. For as long as school has existed, teachers have had to send work home for students who miss school. Please give us the professional freedom and allow us to use our expertise to deliver instruction and learning materials as best fits our subjects and/or grade level for quarantine students. We could perhaps look into expanding the idea of homebound instruction and pay a few teachers to help teach quarantine students outside of the contract day. You may have thought that RTV would reduce class sizes, and it does, in some classes, in some buildings. Unfortunately, it only does by 1 or 2 students at most. So we do not gain the sudden ability to meet the 6-foot social distancing needed to keep everyone safe. All RTV does is to complicate instruction in an already complicated situation. Teachers want to do what's best for students, and we are struggling with RTV because we know as hard as we are working, it is just not the best option for our kids. You wanted to offer options to the community, but quite honestly, there are just too many choices. Please keep it simple. Make the options either fully virtual or fully in person. At the high school, that could include a blended model of CVVA and in-person learning. As the president of CVA, I consider it part of my job to protect and support my faculty. I am concerned about the health and well-being of my coworkers. I have so many more people asking me about and taking leaves because of the risks and strain involved in teaching this year. Many of those things are out of this board's control, but RTV is something you do control. In this stressful environment, I am asking you to eliminate RTV as an option at all levels. This will help to reduce some of the stress that we are feeling and allow us to focus on making our instruction the best possible for our students. Thank you.
Comments from other employee groups? All right, Board, you have in front of our consent agenda tonight. Things we've talked about and discussed in the past. I will take a motion to approve our consent agenda tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, starting with Phil.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Aye.
And aye. All right, back to some policies. We're starting with you, Phyllis.
Okay, good evening. This is my do-over from last week. So, we did a little bit of research in the intervening week. The good news is we've been able to find the file that was sent to Psba when we converted all of our policies to board docs. The bad news is we haven't had a chance to check every single one of them, obviously because the policy book is very large. However, we were able to sort of figure out what was going on with the policy that Mrs. Groff asked me about last week. So I'm going to do my best to try to give you the history and then show you what happened. So Dr. Z, if you could pull up the very first one that says, as sent to Psba, the PDF, please. So what we were able to determine, we were talking about this policy being in 1993. So it was absolutely looked at between 93 and 2008, but what happened in an intervening time, I'm not sure that I can tell you. But what I can tell you is, Dr. Z, if you could scroll down a little bit to the next, right. So you can see what was in this policy that was approved in 2008, okay? So that's the policy that we were looking at last week. And I believe on this one, if we go up to section, I'm sorry, so that's what was sent to Psba. Then if you go to the next PDF, please, you will see the policy that was changed in 2008. So same dates as the one I just showed you, but Dr. Z, if you just scroll down till you get to a red section right there, you're going to see some language about superintendent referring major gifts with a value of $5,000 or more to the board for approval. So that section was not in the policy that you looked at last week, but it should have been because it was approved in 2008. Okay? The rest of the policy is exactly the way you looked at it last week. And then the third piece that I have for you, which is what we had to review last week, so we sort of started over. Thank you, Dr. Z, if you'd go to the link. Then you go into board docs to show the revisions that we're showing to, not the policy you saw last week, but the one that was in fact adopted in 2008. So we did also look at this policy in 2014. We did not make any changes to this policy in 2014. The changes were made in 2008. You will see the changes that I reviewed with you last week that are now in the most recent version of this policy. I frankly cannot tell you why the correct policy didn't go in the file to Psba. It's probably not worth trying to figure out at this point, but we know where we were and where we are now, if that makes sense. So we can choose, if you don't like this or there's other changes we want to make, we can certainly keep moving. And what that would mean is we'd come back to you in October, but we feel comfortable that we now know what's happened. We have the changes that we would like to see made to the policy, and we are recommending it. That's why it's under action discussion, as we're going to try to do the review and the first reading tonight so that you can do the second reading in October, and that keeps us on schedule. But again, it's your policy, so if there are other things that you don't like or you want to change, we can absolutely just punt the whole thing to October.
I want to thank Phyllis for the work she did
It wasn't easy, and I got to thank Mrs. Martin, because, man, we were pulling stuff apart all over the place last week.
And I understand now how this came about. It was part of the technical glitches that happened when we transferred from our website, our board website, to Board Docs, and things got mixed up. I'm not sure that we're at 100% where I remember it being, but the one that you brought up that mentions the use of trees or shrubs, okay, my memory, and it may not be right, was that in an effort to make sure that all students had an equal memorial, I thought that was still in place.
Okay.
And my only concern is that we not allow, that we recognize the fact that the loss of any student is equally as large a loss, and that it shouldn't be because a student is more high profile or because their parents or family or friends have more resources, that one would have a more outstanding memorial. So it was that equality piece that I was hoping to make sure would stay in this.
Okay.
And that's what I would like to see in here.
Okay.
IDETA does say that
Yeah.
reviewed and adopted with concepts of equality.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
does-
yeah,
it
that's
does-
what I mean. As long as that part is in it. One time we specified a tree or a shrub.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that ended up coming out, because
Yeah.
that's what we did at one time. It was always a tree with a plaque. If the board's happy with, the more generalized feeling, that's fine, but I'd like it to be in place and perfectly clear before unhappily we would ever have to refer to it again. Because that's not the time to be addressing this.
Agreed.
I just thought it should be more specific. But I will admit this is more like what I had hoped to see.
Well, and so my understanding of the way the policy process works to kind of keep in compliance with the school code, but yet sort of be able to walk through this is, if we're going to make, so as having heard my explanation, having heard what Mrs. Graff said, I would say, unlike other times when we approve a first reading of a policy and then we come to the next meeting and we essentially just approve the second reading and we're sort of done, if any board member feels, particularly in this case, that language, and when Mrs. Graff and I talked about it last week, I said the same thing with her, is, if you feel like the language is not fitting the purpose of the way you would like it to read, we can make changes between a first reading and a second reading. Sort of the rule of thumb with that is, it's the level of changes you make. So if you make so many changes that the policy really kind of takes on a different nature, a different flavor, you really should take that policy back to first reading. But I think, as Mrs. Graff said, we're pretty comfortable that it's close. So if there are kind of some wordsmithing anybody wants to do in the next 30 days, just let me know, and we can continue to make those changes between this meeting and the next meeting. That's not a big deal.
I have a question. So as I'm looking at board docs, the guidelines are still in the draft policy, is that correct? Or did you recommend removing the guidelines?
No, we didn't remove them. They're still
Okay.
there. Yep.
So that's where it does speak about trees or shrubs or scholarships or books or things like that. It's all going to remain? Okay.
Yeah, so I probably should say that for the new board members, so you know how the policy stuff works, which is, and Mrs. Martin is going to catch me if I say this incorrectly, if you see something is red and has a line through it, that means that's being struck from the policy. So in this one, we changed some of the numbers around because they weren't flowing quite right. If you see something in green, that's an addition that we're making to the policy. So anything kind of, as Dr. Mead said, that's just sort of normal black text is there and recommended to stay there. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
So you're looking for approval of this one,
Well,
first
I
reading
can go
tonight?
through both of them, and then you can decide whether you want to approve them tonight. You can either approve 702 or 703 or both of them.
Okay.
Okay? So if we're okay with that one, yeah, all right. Dr. Z, we're going to go through the same process for 703. So 703, as it was sent to PSBA, look like this. And you will also see in this one that, scroll down just a little bit, yep. There are some pieces of language that was in the policy that I showed you last week. Actually, it was at the bottom of this page that was referencing bloodborne pathogens and some other language that needed to be taken out of the policy. So Dr. Z, if you would then go to the next PDF, you're going to see this section's going to shorten up a little bit. So what we did in 14, and these were changes that we made in 14, okay? So again, you can see the red strikeout showing you what should have been removed from the policy. Again, I can't tell you why that policy didn't get converted to Psba in the correct way, but it didn't. And when I pulled my notes for this, I was here when we did this and remembered that we talked about a lot of that bloodborne pathogen stuff is in a bloodborne pathogen policy, so it does not need to be repeated here, which is why we took it out. That's sort of been a practice we've been implementing is there are certain policies where it makes sense to reference another policy or to repeat, not so much often to repeat language, but sometimes, but to reference another policy, but not to have exact language in multiple policies unless there's a good reason, because then when you change it, you have to kind of remember to change all the policies. So we've been trying to clean that up, at least over the time that I've been here at the board's direction. And then if we go to, Dr. Z, to the link, it will show you the cleaned up version of 703, which has the items that I just showed you removed, and then makes the changes that Ken and I talked about last week, a couple of little pieces with the types of recyclable materials that we talked about, and I think we talked about some of the things that we do recycle. Yep, you're going in the correct direction. Just, yep, go down. Yep. And then kind of at the bottom, we had some other language that we had added into that policy as well. So those are the two that you have before you.
Questions, board? All right, so why don't we just do that? Why don't we I'll take a motion to approve these first readings of these policies.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, there you go, Phyllis.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I apologize for that. We'll try to get it figured out what happened.
All right, Dr. Z, I think you're next.
Yep, and it's downloading.
Okay.
Or this is just a quick update of where our students are this year. These numbers are accurate as of last Friday. So you will see for our student enrollment, our in-person and our virtual numbers. High school is the only one that has a blended model with CVVA and with RTV. Outside placements, I have included the full-time CTC students at the high school. The other ones are overwhelming majority are special ed placements outside the district. So when you take the raw numbers and you put them into a percentage, you'll see that overall we're looking at about 20% of our students are virtual and 80% of our students are in person.
And just for comparison's sake, not that you have the number in front of you, but going into, and Dr. Mann, you can maybe say this, what was our virtual last year, like percentage-wise? Much, not that, I understand, but,
Number-wise, I would say, for example, elementary CBVA, we had about 35 students,
okay,
and now we're looking at close to 400, around 400.
right.
So it's significantly increased there. In high school, we have seen an increase. Middle school was a little higher than last year.
But-
The CBVA number.
But not as dramatic as the elementaries, right?
And Mr. Schertzer, we did not have the RTV model either, so that was counted as virtual this year and not last year.
Okay. All right.
That's it, Mr.
Yeah.
President.
You or Phyllis talking about the next one?
Yep. I'll get to you. The service agreement, due to the overwhelming demand on our technology department with our new iPads coming in for the primary grades, as well as everything else that's going on, going with a virtual model, Josh and his team are doing a phenomenal job. But in order to give them a hand, we are requesting that we temporarily hire a technology staff member to join his team to contract out with the Randstad services.
Any questions, board?
And Josh is here if you need any specifics.
Do you need a motion to accept it?
We do.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call starting with Lisa.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
And aye. All right. All right, board, you see in front of you the finance and operations and your curriculum instruction.
There is a curriculum instruction presentation.
Dr. Mann.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to give you an update on Act 158. I mentioned this about a year ago concerning 158. 158 is the change in the graduation requirements based on the Keystone exams. Prior to this, students had to have a proficient passing score in all three Keystone exams. In Act 158, the governor signed into law in 2018, modified that, and so there are pathways now. So there you can see the pathways. We have the Keystone Pathway, and that means is you pass the Keystone exams. The easiest, cleanest pathway of all of them, but passing the Keystone exams. The second one is the composite score, and I'll explain that in a little bit. And there's alternate assessment.
Oops, I'm sorry.
That's right. And then the one they call evidence-based pathway, and then there's a CTE pathway. So the Keystone exam, again, just being advanced or proficient in all three, straightforward. Now, with the composite score, the student has to earn at least a 452 composite score on the three exams. One of the exams has to be proficient, and nothing can be below basic. Okay? So, again, some moving around there, but giving some opportunity for some movement for the students there. So that's called the composite pathway. The alternate pathway, here's where it starts really getting complicated. They pass the Keystone exams, get a grade, and pass the course based on their activity in the classroom. And they get one of the following. And I don't need to read all of that, but they have to get a score, SAT score, PSAT score, or a NAC score, or participate in an ASVAB. So there's a variety of things there. You can see that there. And it continues on. Some of this is still being defined. For example, the pre-apprenticeship program. Right. I'm not exactly sure what that is. Okay. The evidence-based pathway. Again, students passing the Keystone exams, the Keystone course. And they have three pieces. One is from the previous grouping, and two pieces of evidence would come from Pathway 3, which is the alternative pathway, attainment of an industry credential, or points to highlight, and two of these could be one or more from the list above. Service learning project, again, not necessarily defined yet by PD. What is a service learning? I know what a service learning project is for me, but to what extent it needs to be for the student, still being not defined. Proficient or better score on the Keystone exam, a letter guaranteeing employment, internship cooperative, completion of an NCAA course, a minimum grade of a 2. And then the last pathway is the CTE pathway. And this is for, obviously, our youngsters that are going on to the CTC. They have to pass the courses, and then, while the CTC, earn a industry-based credential or demonstrate a high likelihood of earning one, of being competent in that industry, and a ability to continue on in the study of whatever area they are. Reason mentioning that, one is just to kind of remind you of this Act 158, but then more importantly, COVID. Last spring, we had a cohort of students that would have been in the what's called trigger courses, which would have been your biology, algebra 1, and 10th grade English composition. So they were your trigger courses. So we had students that were in there. We couldn't test. The PDE asked the federal government for a waiver, which it was granted. The federal government granted a waiver. Unfortunately, these pathways now exist. And the ruling that came out based on these pathways is that every student has to have an opportunity for all pathways. So right now what that means is that we have to offer the test to all the students from last spring. So a student was in biology class or algebra 1 or English comp would have to take the test. There are 3 windows that the state provide. One is actually next week, which we are not doing. The others are when we would normally test. So we have early January, and then early May is when the spring semester for testing occurs. And our plan right now is to move students in those directions. If a student's currently taking a math course or an English course, for example, in their junior year, the supervisors are going to work with those teachers to support those students in prepping them. Because think about it, it's a final exam a semester after the course. So helping them prep for the test and encouraging students to do that. And we are encouraging the students to take the test. Again, as I said before, it's the cleanest pathway, and a student still may be able to pass that test. And then the composite one fits into that as well. So we're going to be sending out letters to the families or the students that this impacts, explaining this to them. One of the things that that came out of all this is that they relaxed the ability to opt out for just the last year's spring cohort. And it basically is the parent says, I don't want my son or daughter to take the test. And that's sufficient. If you remember, under the normal Keystone guidelines, it has to be a religious exemption. So that's still in play, but not for last year's spring cohort. If that makes sense. So we're going to be explaining a lot to people and hooking them up and making sure they're in the proper place to test. But and I just found this out at the end of last week, there's a Senate Bill 1216 out there that came September 16th that's saying, hold the phone. Why are we doing this, basically? Which is what we've been asking all along. Why would you force kids down this path? So this is saying that almost saying the students don't have to test. I don't know where this is going. It just came out last week, and I think it's Representative Lawrence's piece of legislation. I hope they make a decision soon. Fortunately, we're not testing next week, so it doesn't impact us, but it'd be nice to know if students don't have to worry about this.
So it's legislation for the group that missed it it's
Correct.
around the group that missed it last year?
Correct.
Gotcha.
It's like saying you don't have to take your driver's test, but you can't drive unless you take the test. Because the Keystone exam is an integral part of a couple of those pathways that allows the student to graduate. It's ever-changing, though. Thanks, Dr. Mann.
Any questions, any additional questions for Dr. Mann before he runs away? All right. Let's see. All right. Dr. Z, any federal funds tonight?
No, sir.
All right. IDET, anything that you would like to enlighten us on for your reports that you'd like to highlight or that you haven't said?
Not especially. I just, keep repeating that the conference next month is free. So if you register for it and there's only one session you want to be part of that you're especially interested in, there's no reason not to be able to participate.
Right on. All right, thank you. John, any thoughts from the CTC?
Not tonight.
All right. Fred, any comments for us from the construction side of things?
Fred, which one would you like up?
The Brownstown,
The executive report?
the executive report, I'm sorry, yes. These will both just take a minute or so on either, but the So the Brownstown project is about 90% complete. Really, the areas that are left to complete are the kitchen, the library, and 3 STEM labs. There is a number of punch list items or deficiencies that have to be worked on. Those have been established through the review of the architectural firm, and we are now pushing the contractors to work their way through those. Completion is estimated about the end of October, mid to the end of October. That seems a little optimistic, but if we can keep them focused, I think they can do it.
Could you scroll back down to, I think it's page 3? Back up to page 3.
Keep going up.
Keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah,
The other way.
Right there.
A little bit more. I wanted to look at the prices again, the costs.
Right there.
Thank you.
Any questions on Brownstown?
For Dr. Z, how's the
That is the library there.
how's the new loop working?
The new loop is working great. Without that loop, we would have been in a lot of trouble with our increased number of parent drop-offs.
Okay.
So it is taking the cars off of 772.
Good.
I just want to say my oldest really misses his hot lunches, so if you could get that cafeteria done, well, we appreciate that. Thank you.
So that completely empties 772? Because I mean, I haven't seen any cars out there, but I do see the flow of the loop through the parking lot and out, out
And
on-
Phyllis, I don't think there's many on School Street.
Yeah, that's good.
We picked up on Friday, we picked up Noah, and what used to be there and what is now is completely I mean, the work that's done is great. It's to get those people off that street, it's a great job. They're doing good, so.
Great.
There are a lot of odds and ends on this project that have to be cleaned up, and we're pushing hard to get those consolidated. The next one is the middle school. Of course, that's about 8% complete. Fundamentally, what's going on there is that the site is probably 99% graded. The building pads, the parking lots, the athletic fields, the roadways, or as I said, in 99% graded. They have started on the excavation of the foundations for the building itself, working on the 3-story foundation first. That incorporates a fairly large retaining wall to hold back the earth for the 2-story building. I think the latter photos will show some of the foundation work, but what they all look, most of these photos look the same, and that's what it is. It's a flat dirt area. Here's where they started to excavate for the foundations for the retaining wall in the 3-story addition. As you can see, the embankment on the right-hand side, that takes you up to the next level of the building. That's actually there's few pictures that are exciting on the project right at this point. So that's just a wellhead that was drilled. That part of the progress that has to happen. So, any questions on the middle school?
All right. Thank you, Fred.
Yep.
All right, this is the second time in our meeting for public comments. Any further comments from the public? All right. Seeing none. Any board matters tonight? I know one of the ones we're going to talk about real quick here, but Idette, well, go ahead, Idette.
Yeah, I was wondering if I could ask a question relative to the gentleman's request at the beginning of the meeting. Is marching band strictly extracurricular, co-curricular, or do they get credit for it?
It is not a credit-bearing course.
So it's considered extracurricular?
It is.
Okay, I just wanted to make a statement that I have to be sympathetic to his position that it should be students first. That makes sense to me. I understand this is not brought to the board for us to decide, but I did want to weigh in. And I also wanted to add to that I recognized how important these extracurriculars are to our students. It's often what makes their school experience memorable and worthwhile. Mm-hmm. And I get that, and it's important. If it's co-curricular or extracurricular, it doesn't matter. And I can't help but think of other extracurricular activities that for some students are as vital as sports are to some of our students. My first thought is always with TSA. The students that are participating in that regularly will be preparing for competitions that are important to them, they're important to their future, and are actually co-curricular because they extend the kind of training and learning that they can't get in the classroom. Mm-hmm. So while we have attention to these performing arts students and athletes, be it band, orchestra, choir, or any of the sports, I don't think we should forget to think, is there something we can do with some of the other extra and co-curricular organizations?
And just for clarification with the marching band, the proposal that Dina and Mike were working on was to move the marching band to a different night to allow more fans in the stands to cheer on the marching band while they did their presentation. So it's not eliminating the marching band, that's still there. The intent was to have more parents be able to see their son or daughter perform, whether it's in the band, the football field, or the cheerleaders.
Well, some of our people in the community also, I think that's important. Do we stream that?
We're working on getting the streaming equipment right now.
Okay, I mean, I know, and I'm always the biggest one saying our focus has to be education, but there are a lot of other activities that are vital to their education too, and I don't want our focus to be just on this one thing in the fall, because there are others also that maybe we need to visit and see if there's some way we can accommodate.
And this happens to be with football, with the governor's 250-25
Yeah.
guidelines.
I understand that.
Football's the biggest sport, and then the team that's coming, without any visiting fans, they also have a large number of players. So it gets up to 250 rather quickly. The other sports that we're playing in the fall aren't going to hit that 250 limit, even when they play in the stadium, whether it's field hockey or soccer. So our biggest issue right now with numbers approaching 250 is the Friday night football game.
Yeah. I understand that, and that's the way it always is. I just wanted to try to connect that with some of the other activities that usually go on in the school year.
Certainly.
I'd like to follow up on that and just say, I am sympathetic as well. I think that the students' opportunity to participate supersedes parents' desire to observe. And I say that as a parent of 2 sport athletes and musicians.
All right. Thank you, Idette. Dana? In concerning board matters, I did ask John and Idette to talk a little bit about putting forth a nomination to fill not the seat, but the vice president's role on the board. So, John, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So Idette and I had a conversation and also talked to the board member that we are nominating. So we are nominating Dana Mead to be the vice president for the remainder of this term.
So, board, I will take a motion to approve.
That was a nomination. You can just take a vote.
Okay, well then, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Welcome, Miss
I don't know if this
Mead.
is a blessing or a curse.
Yeah.
Guess we'll see.
I guess we'll see.
We didn't mean to curse you by any means.
All right. The election of the PSBA officers. Idette.
Yeah, to those board members that haven't gone through this before, I always like to remind you that whoever sits as president of PSBA, and those people that sit on PSBA's board, and I've been one of them, don't affect how we do our board work at all. I understand that, but there are issues of internal management of the organization that require members to vote, and we now do that by entire boards. The process they use, I objected to for the very reason it's not working now. As you see, you're not given any choice to vote, except this year there are 2 people for vice president, and I am sadly recommending that we support Mr. O'Keefe. We do not have to vote on the Secretary's Council. Our board secretary will be the only one to cast that vote.
All right, so remind me, Idette, so we need to have a motion and vote?
So Idette, was that a
Yes,
motion?
it is a vote.
Okay, so
Well, we can do it as a motion. Either way works. I mean, I will make a motion that we cast our vote for the PSB officers as presented, and specifically for vice president, cast that vote for Mr. O'Keefe.
all right.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, Idette. All right, board, you'll see in front of you the dates. We have a retreat, I believe that's next Monday, and then our board meetings in October. With that, I will take a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Didn't we move that date?
That date's next Wednesday.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, yes, it's September 30th. My bad, yes, September 30th is our retreat. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn to executive session for legal and personnel reasons.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?